About a month ago, the National Assembly passed a bill granting full financial and administrative autonomy to local governments. This thing has been spoken about and is being spoken about, has been spoken about forever.
You are underlining the word spoken.
All we have done is spoke. We have not do. We should do the spoke that we have spoke. Excuse my French, everybody.
Please, if you need an app to interpret.
I mean, all we have done is talk about this autonomy. When are we actually going to effect it?
Especially because we have done it before, and it worked creditably well.
And as we were saying at the beginning of the program, local governments don't seem to be doing anything. The people whose lives they're supposed to impact don't feel anything, and this is the reason why they don't feel anything.
You know, if I even have a hypothesis, Zero, every Nigerian has 10 staff. Whether you are employed or not, you have 10 staff. The president is your staff. The vice president is your staff. The governor, the deputy governor, the member of the House of Assembly, the senator, the House of Representatives, the chairman, vice chairman, and councillor. They are your staff.
This man is just determined to make us unhappy this morning.
Well, you pay them.
Please
anyway.
Don't allow that happen to you. Don't be dejected. Don't just listen to this man this morning, please.
But please, just hear what I said, but don't listen.
We have with us in the studio this morning to look at this very, very crucial issue, Dr. Adia Ode, who's National Team Leader, Partnership to Engage, Reform and Learn. Good morning. And we also have Ambassador Jerry Ugokwe, former ambassador to Austria, co-convener, Democracy
Vanguard.
Democracy Vanguard, and two-time member of the House of Representatives. Good morning.
Good morning.
And
thank you, Auntie Alera.
Here we go again.
I hope you will let me sing a birthday song.
Oh my God!
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. May the good Lord bless you. May the good Lord bless you.
Ambassador, you're going to pay for this.
May the good Lord bless the good Lord. May the good Lord bless you.
Is this my producer who put you up to this, Ambassador? But I'll tell you, you're going to pay for this after this program.
No, you have to set up a committee for that because he's a two-time member of the House.
You set up an ad hoc committee, they will investigate and they know whether I should pay or you should.
There's a white paper to be released.
That might take 3 years. Anyway, Ambassador, now let's get to business. This issue about the local government autonomy.
Yes.
The National Assembly has finally decided to pass a bill. Do you see things changing?
Well, that is why we're here, so that we can make things change. When you say a bill, you know, this is not just an ordinary bill. This is a constitutional amendment, which is fundamental. Now, the National Assembly has considered it in its wisdom to say, look, we must get governance down to the people of Nigeria, not just hanging on top. Because I come from a local government. Even if I live in Abuja, I live in a local government. In Lagos, you live in a local government. We all belong to local governments. So if the local governments function well, then, you know, we're in good shape. So the National Assembly passed a law that gives local governments financial and administrative autonomy. Now, the other part of it is that being a constitutional amendment, the Constitution requires that for it to become really a law, it must go through the state houses of assembly for what you call concurrence. Now, and the Constitution says you must have 2/3 of the 36 members, 36 houses of assembly, which means you must get 24 houses to concur to that for it to become...
At least.
Yes, for it to become the law of the land.
Yes.
So that's why we're here, so that you, as members of the Fourth Estate of the Rim, would help us talk to our state assemblies, put out this message so that people will understand that this is in the interest of all of us. It's not about National Assembly, it's not about members or senators or what have you.
A quick follow-up on that, Ambassador. This is not the first time the National Assembly has made it part of the constitutional review process.
Yes.
That both chambers of the National Assembly have passed it.
Yes.
This is like the third time, right?
Yes, yes.
So, what will make this different? What were the inhibitions we had previously, and how is this going to be any different?
Well, as you know, the state assemblies, have their own issues. Sometime when you get to talk to some of them, you find that they all depend on what the governor says. I'm sorry to say this, but it happens, but we all know that. We can't hide it anymore. So we are saying to state assemblies and to governors, do what is right for the nation. I've had governors who served as governors in the states, and now they are in the National Assembly. And when you talk to them, many of them pass this bill because they now realize that this is in the interest of Nigeria. So the point is that we must ensure, we must put pressure on members of the State Assembly, put pressure on governors who also control them, or those who control those State Assembly people, whether they are money bags or what have you, to say, look, this is not about anybody's interest. It is about our own interest. Some people would say, they are not accountable and all that. First, let us do it first. And then we get to the next stage, which we'll talk about accountability.
Yeah, Doc, my partner and I looked at this thing last week, and we talked about it at length. And he was baffled about the states' assemblies and why it's so hard for them to understand that this whole matter is for the general good. Why do we have to lobby them to agree to this thing, which is crucial to governance in Nigeria?
Thank you for that question. But before I start, I want to explain that I'm here as a Nigerian. So I'll be speaking as a citizen of Nigeria, not as national team leader for PEL ECP. Ambassador, when he spoke, has talked about the difficulties, the challenges that the state assembly members face, and the fact that there's an overbearing influence of the governors on the members. They are conscious of this, and they are all rational human beings. They want to come back.
One would think.
One would think so. I think so. They want to come back to the assembly. But as we all know, in each state, the governor is the leader of the party, and he decides who gets a ticket. And if you vote against his interest, you are at risk. But there's a way out. As Sheyi earlier said, every citizen... No,
Sheyi is in Oyo State.
Ayo. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Me.
No, I understand.
Excuse
the
me.
mistake is accepted.
Okay. Every Nigerian has 10 staff. And the House of Assembly member is a staff of the citizen. But he's reporting to someone else. It's like your personal staff reporting to someone else. So we have to hold them to account. So it's important for every citizen of Nigeria to come out and tell their representatives in the state houses of assembly, I'm watching you.
Madam, if you don't mind me following up, I'm still baffled by a number of things, one of which is, in the Constitution, I thought whatever comes first is in a particular order, right? In the Constitution, I don't know the name of the number of the chapter, but the legislature always came first before the executive. I thought that meant that the number one arm of government is the legislature, and number two is the executive, and number three is the judiciary. So how come how do I even put it now, that the leader is subservient to the person that's supposed to report into him?
Indeed, that's how it should be. But as we know, the person who controls the funds controls everything. And that's why we also have been advocating for financial autonomy for the state legislatures. That bill has been passed, and we hope that it can be institutionalized so that the state legislatures can be cut off from the umbilical cord that holds them to the governors and makes them subservient or reportable or accountable to the governors so they can vote on behalf of the citizens.
Even that is still a little baffling to me, Ambassador. I'm sorry, Harold. Because we say the executive controls the purse, but someone supervises the control, which is the legislature, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes, that's what is, the ideal situation is.
Oh, God.
But of course, whenever you come to Nigeria, you find that things
on their head
are upside down, sometimes when you go to state assembly, as you know, of course, the National Assembly is financially autonomous.
Yes.
And that's why they can be bold and do certain things, and say certain things and oversight properly. The state assemblies, the law is there, but for them to activate it is usually the problem. Even the president is interested in this, and that's why he's been, doing all these executive order 10 and the rest of them, so that the law could be obeyed. But you find that when you get to the state assemblies, because many of these people were either brought in by money bags or by governors, they just write a list and say, these are the members who are coming this time. I'm told even in one of the states that some governors have gone to tell certain people, you cannot run this time. I am bringing somebody. In fact, as a matter of fact, there are some places where the governors are bringing their children to replace those who are active in the parliament, people that you will ordinarily want to promote, from what they have done in the parliament. The governors are coming to say, you won't run, I'm bringing my brother's son, I'm bringing my daughter, those kinds of things.
But where is the guarantee?
Well,
that's another matter, right?
That's another matter.
Okay, all right.
But why I want to focus on this is that we have a window now. What is that window? Before this gets to the National Assembly, to the state assemblies, the nominations would have come and gone. Nominations by end of this month, middle of next month and all that, nominations would have been done, which means those who would have won would have won. Those who would have lost would have lost. So what we're saying, if you are a true Nigerian, if you love Nigeria and you want the right thing to be done, you have gotten your ticket if you win. So go ahead and vote for this. But if you failed, that even makes it easier for you to say, I'm going to do the right thing. After all,
nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And so that is the window that I find when this is coming.
And the governors, what happens?
Sorry.
Because, the governors are still...
And of course, many of the governors will not be returning. Most of the governors, about 80% of them have done their at their second time. So they are not coming back. So
this is a good chance to start from ground zero.
This is a unique opportunity. It's not happened like this before. In most cases, it had been maybe in the middle of the session or even at the beginning of the session, and then they still have their,
But another concern in that same argument of the same permutation is it's the election period.
Yes.
Most of these, there is the word out there that most of the time during election periods, election years, governance seems to take the back seat. So how do we ensure that the needful is done in the middle of all of this?
You see, first of all, the primaries will come and go, and then this comes to the floor. It doesn't mean that at the end of primaries, the House doesn't sit anymore. there is still a lot to be done. It's still about a year, if you will, to the end of the tenure of the houses. So what happens is after the primaries, then people would have now known whether they are going back or not. And in many cases, what you see is that after primaries, you see more of those who are not returning sitting in the chamber. So it's an advantage. Let them vote for, for this law, because they are not returning anyway. And they can go out and say to the world, while I was a member of the House, we passed this law.
Perhaps
that's what I challenge them to do.
Yes. Yeah, the fact that it's an election period also gives us an opportunity to make this an election issue.
Matter, yeah.
So the people who don't vote against it should be vilified.
Yeah.
And this is why we think the media is a critical stakeholder in this matter. We should vilify whoever votes against, whichever state assembly votes against it.
Perhaps another, I'm sorry, perhaps another issue is maybe some of these members of the Houses of Assembly don't even understand what's at stake here. Because I'm wondering, each member of the House is from a ward, a microcosm of the local government. So if they understand what it means for their local government to have administrative autonomy, to be able to hire and fire, and financial autonomy, to be able to do some of the things that I find in the Constitution, it's their business to make roads, take care of advertising, billboards, and all those things. But those things we have, state, the states, governments coming up with the signage agencies and all of that, which, according to the Constitution, is supposed to be functions of the local government. So maybe the members of the Houses of Assembly don't even understand what the functions of the local government are or supposed to be.
Yeah, no, you're right in that. And that's why Democracy Vanguard is taking it upon itself to do a tour of the states, explaining to each assembly the implications of these bills and how they benefit from the bill. It also releases them from some of the liabilities they're carrying at the moment, because many people say, you were in the state assembly, what did you do for us? Like they are executive. But then it's not their responsibility. So if the local government executives are carrying their responsibilities, it releases the representative in the State House of Assembly. So Democracy Vanguards will be going around to all the state houses of assemblies to explain the implications of all the bills and what it means for them to vote for these bills and pass them.
Okay, Ambassador.
And we're asking the press to beam their searchlights on these houses of assembly. Beam your searchlight so that people will know, even when they have won their primaries. That's not winning the election anyway. So if you highlight those of them who refuse to vote for this bill and tell the world that this guy could not even vote for a local government to be autonomous, so why is he going back to the state assembly?
Okay, Ambassador.
Yes.
I would like us to break it down so that everybody understands clearly. Because, like she said and he said, it seems as if even the House of Assembly, the state houses of assembly members don't understand the work that the local government is supposed to be doing. Now, let us break it down a bit so that our viewers can understand clearly. Local government autonomy. What will it signify?
Okay. What it signifies is that the local government administrative autonomy, for example, that the local government can hire and fire.
Okay.
Can hire, can discipline. So it's no longer somebody is seconded by the governor to head the local government, what have you. It also says that you must hold local government elections. Just, unlike what you see these days, when governors come in, they dissolve local governments and now appoint their persons as caretaker committees.
Yeah.
That's administrative autonomy we're talking about. They can hire and fire, they have a tenure, just like the governor has a tenure. They must be elected at certain points, at certain points other people will be elected. Now, financial autonomy means that when a state has a budget, as soon as you finish that budget, the money that is budgeted to local government goes directly into that particular local government account, which means once a local government executive comes into power, they now sit together, do their own budget, they set up an account. Now that budget now goes to the state assembly. At the end of the day, when the budget is passed, you know what is due to you. If it is 1 billion naira, if you will, as soon as the state assembly passes that bill and the governor signs it, the accountant, of the state now transfers that 1 billion naira to Surulere local government. And then Surulere local government, they have their council. They have also submitted a budget as to what they are going to do for the year. They begin to operate it without having to. When they want to spend money, the local government chairman will run to the governor's office, carry a file.
I thought the ideal initially was that federation puts money in an account, then the state government also puts money in that account for disbursement or use of or by the local government.
That was
and the money
so-called
goes
initial.
To the local
it goes direct.
account.
That was the initial thing of Jack. But what has happened is that Jack has been converted into a private account of state governments. And what they do is that they sit and meet and say, oh, Jack has met, and then we have decided on this and this and that. And then the Jack, of course, in many of these cases, there are local governments that are not elected. Even the ones that are elected, they are afraid of the so-called government of the day. So what they do is they just give them monies to go and pay salaries, and then the rest, it is now said that Jack has decided that this money is going to be spent on so and so, instead of the local government themselves taking a decision of how the money is going to be spent. Now, remember that when people talk about, who supervises them, remember that the state houses of assembly have oversight functions over local government. So what happens now is that you send the money to the local government. They do what they have. They have a budget which they submit to the state assembly, which is passed and signed as a law. And I want to say one thing, because many people just see the budget as just a budget. When a budget is passed, it becomes a law of the land. And when you disobey the law, there are consequences. It is just that we don't take it seriously. Once that signature goes on it by the governor, it becomes a law. So if the local government, say Surulere local government, is given 1 billion, you want to build schools here, health centers here and there. At the end of that budget period, the state assembly will now come for oversight function. Where are
Where are the schools?
Where are the schools? Where are the health centers?
Yeah.
Where are they? If they are not there, that's enough, for you to be punished. Again,
impeachment.
Yes, whatever. I mean, the impeachment is not enough punishment as far as I'm concerned on pilfering people's money. There are, the law or rather, the punishment for disobeying Nigeria's money is not impeachment. Disobeying Nigeria's law is not impeachment. It is jail term, depending on the level of disobedience. That's what it is.
Just to be clear, Jack is Joint Allocation Committee.
Yes.
And it has been hijacked.
It has been hijacked, absolutely. That's a good one. It has been hijacked.
Jack has been hijacked.
Yes, that's a good one.
Now, among the things that the local government council is supposed to do is establishment and maintenance and regulation of slaughterhouses, slaughter slabs, markets, motor parks, and public conveniences.
Yes.
One name comes to my mind immediately, MC Oluomo. Talking about motor parks. It seems that assignment has been completely taken over by the state.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
As most
Indeed.
of the things that I see listed here, even the naming of streets and all that,
All of them
those
have
are
been
all
taken
supposed
over.
to be local government functions.
Indeed.
Add to that, as you answer, add to that, recently there was, I think it was about some months ago, in Oyo State, there was a park chairman as well that was causing some furore, and the state government had to clamp down on the same, thing.
He was deposed.
Oh, so to speak. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, indeed, the state has taken over. But the state is not even talking to the people. The people in the local governments are paying taxes. These parks, motor parks, slaughterhouses, people pay to use them. But
The monies are going to the state.
the monies are going to the state. But they are not talking to the local governments. His Excellency mentioned the local government is supposed to send their budget. Now, to prepare the budget, the local government should consult with the people. What are your priorities? And those priorities should determine the budget. What do we use this your money to do? And that's how the budget should be developed. But that's not happening. So the money goes to the state governor is too far away, too imposing, nobody can talk to him, and the people are suffering. So services are not being delivered. These parks are not functioning. I'm sure if you want to count how many markets in Nigeria have sanitary services, toilets, and everything. You can count on the fingers of one hand. Security services, the schools, are they functioning? Are the teachers there? Are the staff of the local government even in their offices? I know in many local governments, people come at the end of the month to get their salaries.
Yeah.
Who even determines who is a staff? I have heard of local government transition chairmen who just put people. In fact, I heard myself directly. The lady was telling me that she has 7 people on staff now, and she's collecting their salaries. So
Yeah,
we were to congratulate her on having this income.
Wow.
It's
No,
open.
I don't understand. So she is a 7-man staff, one person. I don't understand.
Ghost workers.
What she means is that because it's quote-unquote transition government, the governor puts, his or her person there, and then the person stays there and runs around. Oh, I need to make more money. What's my salary? My salary is 50,000 naira, but I need to go home with about 1 million. Yeah. So I put in names of 7 more people who quote-unquote who are non-existent, who are working for me as your transition chairman. At the end of the month, you pass a note to the accountant. He brings money for all the 7 people plus your own, and then you take home. Why is this? Because they are not elected. If there was a properly elected local government, a properly autonomous local government, whereby you have somebody who is in charge of administration, somebody who is in charge of finance, who is also responsible to the State Assembly in terms of oversight. That will not happen.
But Ambassador,
Yes.
what we're talking about now, is it not going to be an uphill task? Because this has been going on for so long. Everybody is comfortable in this misdemeanor.
Yeah.
So how do we intend to change the whole thing?
You know what? I am one of those who you will call an optimist. There's no in my dictionary. There's no maybe. It should be done. It is the law.
Full stop.
Pure and simple.
Okay.
That's the way I look at it.
Perhaps by way of expatiation, you began by saying the media needs to do, the needful and all of that. But another thing about that is most people are not even aware of the issues to be raised. I'm sorry, maybe I should begin with you, ma'am. Maybe because so many people are not even aware.
Citizen doc.
Citizenship. Maybe they are not even aware People are not even aware, because you say people should demand their rights, but they need to know the rights to demand. Okay, the local government, I mean, most of the times people just sneer and snigger at these politicians who have cornered their, resources and all of that. People don't even know how to compel their representatives, their staff, to do the needful. The only thing they have done mostly is to chase them away from their localities when they go you are this. They call them all kinds of expletives and they chase them away. But that's where they are from, and we've heard quite a few of them like that. So what are the things people need to know in order for them to make demands from these, from the legislators that do this because this is good for us? What are things that people need to know?
People need to know the responsibility of each of the elected people. When they go to the polls to vote, what are they voting for? They need to know that my vote should buy me this. Not 2,000 naira or a bag of rice. They need to know that my vote is buying me a servant who will deliver services for me. They need to know that it's not patronage we're looking for. We are not beggars. We Nigerians, the electorate, we are not beggars. We are looking for services that we are entitled to. So if a governor builds a school, we shouldn't praise him and clap for him.
It's his job.
It's his father's money.
And so when we have the local government chairman, and he's there in our locality, and we know him, we know this man had one car, and suddenly he has 10 cars, and the school is not functioning, we can go to his house and say, what's happening? We can hold him to account.
I beg your pardon, Doc. From what you're saying, it seems to me that a whole lot of awareness,
Absolutely.
a whole lot of educating has to take place.
Yeah, indeed.
So that we, the electorate, know the value of our vote.
Yeah, absolutely. And two things. One, we look to the media to educate the electorate. This is the time.
We are in trouble.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
There's a lot riding on you.
Yes.
So we look to the media to put this information out there. We have civil society organizations who make it their business as well to educate the electorate. And one of the things we do is also encourage partnerships between different groups, between the labor unions, between the grassroots development associations, the Parakpo associations. If they know this, then they begin to spread the word.
Don't the parties have any role to play in this? Don't the politicians have any role to play in this?
The politicians have a role to play. Their manifestos should be speaking to these issues. But as you and I both know, it's very easy to say the electorate don't count. And so if I can buy my ticket for 100 million naira, then I'm not responsible to the electorate. I'm responsible to my party to ensure that I also come back and get another ticket. So we can't leave it to the politicians alone. We have to make the politicians realize that it matters. If it doesn't matter, if we don't make it compulsory that it matters to them, then they will ignore it.
I mean, with what she says, I mean, you won't leave it to the politicians. I'll give you, I mean, you're trying to employ someone. I mean, that person will be trying to convince you that she is the best to do the job. But it is you that will take the decision. Well, so it is important to know that the electorate that hires the so-called politicians we're talking about must be ready.
Okay,
to hire and fire.
You talked about the function for the media.
Yes.
Many people are in the interiors, in the localities. A good number of them may not be watching this program right now. So what are the things that you would suggest to any media practitioner, whether a media manager or even a presenter anywhere, to know in order to, pass this message across to their people?
Thank you so very much. I'm aware that even in these places we're talking about, if the program is on, they may not have light to watch it. They may.
Well, let's just hope they have a transistor radio.
So, but in our localities, what functions is the radio? Mm-hmm. Because even now, people use their telephones as radios. Mm-hmm. So, especially for those of us who grew up in the north, you go to the north, there is, the radio, even the British radio in Hausa and all that. People listen to this thing like, there's no tomorrow. Yeah. So the point we're making is that you must, first of all, translate some of these things we're talking to you about today into all the languages and move it down in such a way that it will be on radio, it will be on social media, for those who, are social media savvy, it should be. The radio is great in the areas where I come from, in the area where I come from. Say something on the radio, before you walk 2 kilometers, somebody will be asking you, is it not about you they are talking about on the radio? So that's the way we
got to wind down now.
So
Citizen Doc. I would like your last word on this. What is your advice to, first, the Houses of Assembly, and second, to the electorate?
Well, what I'll say is that Nigeria's future is dependent on the Houses of Assembly. They need to take responsibility for that. If we want to change our human development indices, if we want to change the state of security that everybody is facing, if we want to change the doldrums that we find our education sector, our health sector, we have to pass those bills. Okay. The local governments have to be autonomous.
Okay. Ambassador?
Well, what I would say, just flowing from what Doc said, is that we have no other country but this. For us to make this country work, the local government must work. So I'm asking the state houses of assembly. It doesn't matter whether you are influenced by the governors or by money bags. This is about you. This is about all of us. It's not a personal thing. Pass this law so that our local governments will work, so that we will all be happy. Nigeria as a whole will work. So let us all stand up to be counted. And for the press, help us push this down to the state houses of assembly, even if it means blackmailing them.
That's what we're doing now.
Blackmailing them, blackmail them so that this can pass.
Okay. Former ambassador to Austria and co-convener Democracy Vanguard, two-time member of the House of Reps, and we also had citizen Dr. Adia Ode, who was not here representing any particular body or association.
But she is.
She's a Nigerian.
But she's a Nigerian. That's the most important thing.
Okay.
Thank you both for coming to shed more light on this for us this morning.
Thanks
Happy
for having
birthday
us.
again, and we'll
Happy
come back
birthday.
for the cake later on.
Thank you very much.
At the end of the show.
Thank you very much. So Sunrise will be right back. Make sure that you join us.